Okay, I'm Kimberly Collins. I'm one of the co-organizers, leaders of the FreeCodeCamp OKC group. Today, our plan is to build a Pomodoro clock. At least we're going to get started showing you how a few of us in the group have worked on it. If you are here, you probably know about our Meetup group, but if you're not, go there and RSVP when you can come to our Meetups. And you might also check out our Twitter account. You can follow that to get reminders about when we're meeting. We're here at Starspace 46, which is an awesome place for co-working and events. We're here in the event space. You can check out their calendar on their website, follow them on Twitter and on Facebook. And if you think they're awesome, you can give them a like or 5 stars on Facebook. We're also really excited that we are sponsored by Techlahoma. So you can check out their website. Their Meetup has a list of, I think, almost 30 groups around the state, and a lot of them meet here at Starspace. You can also follow them on Twitter to get announcements about all the groups, including this one. If you're not in our Slack, that's what we use for group communication. So go to techlahoma.org/spaces, enter your email address to sign up, and then we're in the FreeCodeCamp channel talking about all sorts of things related to getting started with web development. So that's where you can ask any questions that you might have. We're live streaming on Twitch. You can also watch our previous videos from this group and other groups that meet here. So I definitely recommend following the Techlahoma Twitch account to stay up with all those. Our next meetup is going to be in 2 weeks. Since next week is Mother's Day, we're not meeting. And then again on the 28th, we're not going to be meeting because it's Memorial Day weekend. In 2 weeks from today, we're going to have campfire talks, which is our version of lightning talks, kind of going with the camping theme. If you haven't given one yet, this is your chance to give possibly even your first tech talk in a very, welcoming, beginner-friendly environment. If you don't really know what to talk about, we can help you, come up with suggestions. Don't feel like you need to be an expert on anything. In fact, you can just talk about yourself. You're the expert on that. Kind of tell us how you came across FreeCodeCamp, how you got into tech. This is your opportunity to give your first talk to get comfortable with public speaking. So if you're interested in that, get back to me and we'll get you signed up for the 21st. If there's anything on FreeCodeCamp where you're feeling stuck or you're just not really sure where to proceed, let us know and we can go over those topics in June. Our next meetups are going to be the 4th and the 11th, and then we'll have the 18th off because it's Father's Day, and then we'll be back to our monthly campfire meetups. So we've got a couple of weeks there where if you have a suggestion on something you want to learn or an exercise you're stuck on, let us know and we can go over those. So today our goal is to look at the challenge on FreeCodeCamp to build a Pomodoro clock. If you read the description on Meetup, Daniel wrote that and he was really excited about coming and showing you his presentation on the Pomodoro clock, and he ended up in the emergency room. He's at home, hopefully watching on the stream, and so he's really disappointed that he's missing out on this, and so we kind of threw this together sort of last minute, but I asked for a few volunteers, people who had at least started the challenge, and if you're not familiar with what a Pomodoro is, it's a really good time management technique that I would recommend if you're having trouble getting started or feeling unfocused or distracted. Set aside 25 minutes to do something, and nothing else in the world exists. There is no Facebook, email, nothing. You're not going to take a break for 25 minutes, and then you'll have a 5-minute break. And so the goal here is to create a timer to show the 25 minutes and the 5 minutes counting down, and ideally having a noise at the end to let you know that it's time to switch. So I think at this point, I will hand it over to Megan. Are you ready to show yours? Just kind of tell us how you got started, any challenges you had, problems you encountered, advice you have for us, and if there's anything you need help on, we would love to kind of maybe fork your code and help you on yours. So I'm going to switch it over to you now.
All right, we're live. Okay, so basically, from what I was told, we just wanted to show everybody what it looks like whenever you have a vanilla JS Pomodoro clock. So that's kind of how I built mine. So let me go over first and I'll show you how I did it with vanilla JS. So as you can see, there's a lot of code, a lot of refactoring. But up here, I've got 2 main variables that I set from the beginning. The first variable is the break count, and the second variable is the session count. Those refer to these values over here, and as you can see, whenever I click the plus or minus signs, they increment or decrement. As I'm doing that, these values over here are actually changing internally, although you obviously can't see it in my stationary code. It is changing internally, so let me show you where that functionality is coming in. Over here, I've got my event listeners for my increment and decrement little modifiers. And so I've got my event listeners set up so that whenever that happens, I've got them incrementing and decrementing. Now, one thing you might notice is not only do I have the break count and the session count variables, but I've also got this secondary variable over here called session count start and break count start. That was actually kind of my modified kind of a patch up work to make sure that I set my start as my session count and my break count after they've been modified. So basically what that means is if I set my clock to, let me go ahead and set it down to 10. Let's do that. That's fast. So if I set my session time to 10, and note that this won't do it in minutes, this is going to do it in seconds for the purposes of this demonstration. So it's kind of fast. It's the fastest Pomodoro ever. When I click it, it's going to go through. And first it's going to do the session time, it's going to do the break time, but whenever it resets to do the next Pomodoro for the session time, it's going to use that break count start variable. See, it started back at 10. And the reason why it did that was because I went ahead and I set up that secondary variable to make sure that it saved that original value. See, it also did that for break as well. So if I changed break, it would do the same thing. So that's basically what I did to create that functionality. Next over here, of course, I've got all of my selectors, yada, yada, yada. Here I've got my display. And that's the part that I've been changing this entire time. I use the text content property to change my my content, my text content. So very simple, very easy, just a bit more code because it's vanilla.js. All right, so down here I have my main timer functions. First, I added my timer event listener with a click, and then I have a start timer function right here. This is my start timer function. My timer is based off of using a set interval function. So I've got my set interval here, and the way I've got it going is that every 1,000 seconds, my set interval runs this start session timer function. I've got my start timer function right here. And basically what this thing does is it will run this session display update function. Let me go down here. I have a lot of functions. So this is my update display function right here for the session. And basically what this code does is this is the code that actually increments my session, decrements my session count so that it actually does the countdown, as well as updating my display every single time that it does that. So once it's hit a certain value, which I called the end value, it will run this code, which instead of kicking it out of the set interval, I have it set to start another function, which is my start break timer function, which is right beneath it. And basically the start break timer function is kind of the same functionality as the start session timer function, except I've added a little bit of a cheat here. I've added resetting my original session count and break count variables to those break count start and session count start variables that I mentioned before. Basically what this does is this, like I said, make sure that it knows to reset to that time that I gave it originally so that it will always use those times. So that's that's pretty much it. Let me see if there's anything else with my code. No, that's pretty much it. So that's how I run my Pomodoro clock. Oh, and one thing I should mention is, I don't know if you noticed from the demonstration earlier, but every single time I complete a what I consider a Pomodoro, which is a session plus a break, it counts down here. It changes the display down here to show you how many Pomodoros. So for the sake of functionality, let's go back down to 10, like a really short session, and start. And it'll go through, and then every single time it completes a full session and break, it will count 1 Pomodoro. And that's basically it. So thank you. I haven't put it on GitHub yet, but okay, I'll go ahead and put it on GitHub so everybody can see it. All right, well, thank you guys.
Okay, so this is my take on the Pomodoro timer. So unlike Megan, I did mine on CodePen just for ease of hacking on it. But so I'll just run it real quick so you can see how it works. I changed the time interval to about 100 times faster, so you can see maybe it's easier if I just make it shorter. So yeah, you can set the session length and the break length. So if I play that, during the session it'll say get working, and then during the break it'll say break time, and it'll just keep going until you hit stop or pause. Then you can reset it to whatever the settings are at the top. So taking a look at the code here, is this big enough to see? Yeah. All right. So at the top here, it probably needs some refactoring, but I have my session and break lengths in numeric values. This is just to initialize the current minute and the current second counter, which is used for when you pause and reset the timer. And then we have some flags here for when the thing is running or not, whether it's during a session or a break, and then a variable to hold the interval ID for the set interval function, which counts the timer down. So going through here, I chose to use jQuery just because it was easier to attach the function, the event handlers for the clicking all the various buttons. So I've got all the listeners for the plus minus, the up and down for the session and break lengths, a listener for the start play button and the reset button. And so if we take a look at the start timer, which runs when I click the play button, so it takes the current minute and the current second, which was initialized at the start, and this gets reset. This gets saved whenever I pause it. Whenever I call stop timer, it sets the current minute and current second, so that when you say stop here, it saves 4 minutes and 38 seconds on each of the variables, and so when you restart, it keeps going from there. And so in the actual loop interval, the change state just changes the text up here that says get working or take a break, and then you have the time decrementing logic that counts down the seconds, and it decrements the minutes when it reaches 0. This one checks when the minute and the seconds reach 0, then it switches. It sets the session flag to either true or false, depending which one just finished, so that the text up here knows what state it's in. There's probably a better way to do that without so much code. Yeah, stop timer basically just clears the interval and saves the current minute and second. And I also added a disable class when you run it, so that these things get grayed out and you can no longer click them. Just from it was easier for me to code so that I didn't have to add more logic for if you were in the middle of running it and you click it, and I had to decide what to do if you change the length when you were running it. Yeah, so what's left is the reset function, which is pretty self-explanatory. Set the seconds and minutes to whatever the session length is, and change the icon for this play pause button. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Do you have any questions, comments? Lots of comments. I guess from a usability perspective, I probably wanted to change these because these are fairly small and hard to click, and they highlight if you click too fast. So yeah, I probably wanted to change these so that they have a better up-down maybe interface. Yeah. All right. Good.
So if you give 10 different coders the same prompt, you're going to get 10 different solutions. So we've seen vanilla, we've seen jQuery, and so I did mine in Angular. I like the framework and I use it a lot, so I was like, why not? So here's the clock. I haven't set anything so it runs faster, but that's just what's going on. You can pause it, you can reset it, also change the lengths. You can't see anything here, but trust me, it works. So here's my code. Let me make this bigger. So if you're not familiar with Angular, Angular is a framework rather than a library or just vanilla stuff. So there's a lot that actually goes into it. So I'll show you my index files to start. So I'm bootstrapping my app up here, which just means pulling all the code in. We've got my controller that's actually controlling everything, and then we've got my controls down here. So if you notice, we've got these ng-click statements in various places. Those are going to control what increasing and decreasing the times. And then down here, we've got our start, pause, and reset buttons. So now let's go to the code. So I forgot what I was going to say. So I use a there's a style guide actually for Angular 1 that I like to use a lot. It sort of cleans it up a little bit and makes it so that you're not having a lot of anonymous functions everywhere. So here we have the main application. So there's the module, and then there's the controller. Then within here, we've got the function that's handling everything. So Angular has a fun little injectable called interval that actually handles that set timeout, the set interval stuff, and allows you to actually sort of run a clock. This right here allows you to, there's this fun thing in Angular that allows you to set your controller as a specific variable, and that just sets it. We won't get into the details of what's going on here. Okay, so the first bit is we're going to set all of our defaults. So this pom time actually is what is, let me show you here. This is that Pomodoro time, and these are sort of the minutes that we're actually setting. So here and here. And then here's the default display, and then here's the default message. So here is where I bring in all of the functions that I've got. So we've got a start, we've got a pause, and we've got a reset. So those are just the main functions that we are needing to use. And then we've got the time adjustments here. And then just some various extra variables that we need to actually make things work. So the very first thing we have is our helper function, which is actually going to display the time. It converts what I have in minutes to minutes and seconds, and then displays it on the screen. You can see I used it up here. Then the next one is my start function. Let me collapse these as I go through. So the start function actually handles a couple different things. So the first thing it handles is whether or not I'm on a break. So if I am, it'll actually switch over to start the break timer, which is right here. Otherwise, I'm just going to change the message, tell me I'm working, and then it will start the ticking. So this is what this tick function does. It actually handles, so am I below 0? Is my time below 0? Am I, if it is, it'll start the break timer. And then it'll also play a little bit of a sound. I won't probably set this for a couple minutes. And then below that, we've got the break timer. So this is what this break tick is. So this is actually what's handling everything in the background when you're on a break. And just like up here, it's got the same logic for, is it 0? If it is, play a sound, and then reset everything. So the next one, we've got a pause. So a fun thing about this interval injectable right here is that you can actually pause a timer. You can pause whatever you're doing. If you set it to a variable, you can cancel what's going on. So you see up here, I set this to, well, I guess I didn't. Oh, yes, I did. So this timer variable that you saw above is actually what's controlling the clock. And then you just call interval.cancel and it'll stop the timer. So to demonstrate, so see we've got a minute half left or a minute, 2 minutes left. It's paused. Hit play again, it starts where you left off. Next thing we have is a helper function. We do have this, I do use this on the front end or on the, over here as well. It'll actually reset the clock. But what this basically does is it cancels, it pauses the timer again. Or if there's one going, it pauses it and gets rid of it. And then resets all of our defaults. And then this is just resetting break. This is actually not functioning at the moment, which sucks. It's not doing what I want it to do. And then down here we have our increment and decrement functions. So we've got the Pomodoro time up. That just increments that time, and then it resets it so that whenever you see the time change for one of these, so it resets it, it stops it, and then it actually will start to increment this right here, so the main timer. And then same sort of logic with the decrement, and then same thing with the break up and break down. And this very last thing is a helper function that I created for playing sounds. So I decided, okay, let's not use the same sound every single time. So we actually put in a file. I'll show you where that is, or a path to a file. And it will play a sound. So yeah, that's how I did it.
Okay, well, I tweeted from the FreeCodeCamp OKC Twitter account a link to the code for Carson's timer and also Chris's, and Megan's gonna get hers on GitHub. Awesome. Post that in Slack and then I'll tweet it. You did already? We'll get to that. Okay, so we have some time now. If you've got your laptop, you can either start from scratch if you feel comfortable doing that, or fork on GitHub or on CodePen these three examples. So you have the authors of the code right here. You can ask them questions, help them. Megan had a seconds timer thing that she needed help with. So this is your opportunity to start from scratch if you want to, or just build on their work. Because lots of times at work, that's what you'll find you're doing. You don't just start from scratch generally. You're reading someone else's code, modifying their code, adding enhancements. So we're going to have, our meetup is over at 3 o'clock. We'll save a little bit of time at the end for just wrapping up, but we have time right now. I mean, approximately 25 minutes. You can get a Pomodoro, a little bit meta there, done working on your Pomodoro clock. So that's the plan for right now. You can go to either one of these links, and then I'll here in a second get the link from Megan and tweet hers. And if you've never done a fork on GitHub, I can tell you how to do that. I think on CodePen it's a little bit easier. There's literally just a fork button. But basically, forking means that you're making a copy of someone else's code under your account, and then you can make changes to it separate from theirs. And then if you want to, and they want to bring in your changes, you can request them to pull in the changes that you made to their code. So are there any questions about that? Okay, well, let's get started.